All right, we are on our last Terraform lesson today. We're going to wrap up with just a few more additions to the lab that you've been running since day 3. We are going to introduce a very simple React front end, and we are going to use this to interact with Lex. We are essentially going to be adding a chat interface, and we'll be using Cognito with IAM roles. And in the afternoon, we'll also slightly tweak the intents and some of the Lambda functions just to improve the functionality a bit. This afternoon's additions will be really short. I think I've trimmed it down to really just three additions to the code because I want to give you all time to focus on the assessment. So we're releasing assessment 2. It's going to cover everything that we've learned in Terraform, and you will have a week to do this, which means all of next week is essentially just focus time. We are not going to throw any new content, but I think we'll use a bit of time at the start of class each day to review Terraform concepts and to help anyone that's stuck with any blockers or any obstacles with the assessment. So that will be released this afternoon, and let's wrap up Terraform. Okay, we last left off day 3 with meta arguments, I believe. So on Thursday, you all created a customer service bot and you started to use certain meta arguments like for loops and count. You created multiple intents for a single Lex bot, and this allowed us to demonstrate how we could programmatically make any number of resources without having to repeat a lot of code. So just like in regular software development, it's generally good practice to follow dry principles. Don't repeat yourself. And a lot of best practices with general software development do tend to carry over to operations as well. Like keeping your code organized, um, on top of keeping it dry. Let's see. So yes, we created Lex. We used V2. I heard there were a lot of challenges earlier this week with version conflicts. I think Eric told me that V1 was deprecated back in September. So we are using all V2 commands for these last few lessons. Okay. So yes, you configured your bot, and then we set some outputs. We're going to use this exact same project, so hopefully you haven't deleted your directory. Um, let's step back a bit and let's talk about what we'll be doing today. So when Lex calls your Lambda, you'll see an event shaped like this. Basically, you'll see an intent, and a state for that intent. And the response will look something like this. Fairly simple. I guess we want to point out that we're not going to be calling the Lambda directly. We'll be calling Lex runtime v2. The Lambdas themselves then are, let me turn this off. It's annoying me. The Lambdas themselves are what? Specifying things like order status, really just allowing you to adjust the message that's sent back based on the intent. So hence hitting the Lex runtime and not the Lambda directly. In a perfect world, everything would be Terraform only. I don't know about that, but I guess in comparison to using Terraform with AWS CLI, everything would be Terraform only. Really, that's kind of, I don't know, an opinion. When we get to GitHub Actions, which will be starting next week, I don't see the issue at all with combining the two because you're essentially still automating. With GitHub Actions, we're creating multiple steps to run, well, actions that you would otherwise locally. So to there are use cases, like there are ways to use the two in conjunction with one another without conflicts. I do think you all ran into conflicts earlier this module, and that can happen if you're not careful and deliberate and intentional with how you use these two tools together, right? But use cases, for me at least, have been to use AWS CLI to check for resources like S3 buckets or DynamoDB, especially handy for setting up remote state before you actually jump into running any Terraform files. Okay. But I suppose this is mentioned because today we are, or this is still from day 3. We are, or is it, this is, yeah, this is this morning's. Right. We we're doing this weird thing. Chad set this up. We'll be running a Python script that essentially does a lot of the CLI, AWS CLI for us, I believe. Let's just step through this. What this does at a high level, it enables fulfillment code hook on the 3 intents. It removes an initial response setting. Okay. It builds the draft bot locale, creates a new bot version from the draft, and then it creates or updates a bot alias and attaches a Lambda code hook. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, because at least I couldn't figure out how to, through Terraform, attach the Lambda code hook. I either had to go into the GUI and check that box manually, or I guess you can do it through the CLI. So not everything can be done through Terraform, right? At least for
Right,
this
exactly.
exercise.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's yeah, again, just something to be aware of when working with Terraform. You're beholden to whatever resources are available, and the resources being developed for the provider may be behind and not up to date with new resources being developed for new services. So Lex itself is in this transitionary state. It's deprecating V1. V2 is still getting developed. And so the Terraform AWS provider doesn't support all of the resources yet. And there's no guarantee that it will ever either. There's a lot of AI service resources that the Terraform provider does not cover. AWS provider. So yeah, if we look at this, let's see. Let's just look at, I don't know, I think we looked at Poly. Very, very, very few resources available for Poly. It's really just the voices. So we had to interact with Poly primarily through other means, and I think we did so with the CLI and then the SDK. So yes, there are limitations to
As
Terraform.
opposed to what though? Or what are the other like can you give an example? So for that one specifically, the voices are the only resources available as opposed to what? What else is available that we're using in the interface?
From Poly, we had to, trying to remember.
Like the lexicon, maybe? Like you setting up your own lexicon, that stuff?
Right.
But in theory, you could pull that in as a data, right? Maybe in Terraform.
Not if the resource doesn't exist for it.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And so like in a use case like that, you would have to use other ways. And if you're automating, that's where maybe something like GitHub Actions would come in. You could automate using GitHub Actions. You could automate the running of AWS CLI commands. But
Okay.
then again, there's also like the SDK too. Like there's all sorts of ways. At first, DevOps might not seem like it gives you a lot of freedom compared to software development. When you're developing, you have a lot of creativity, and it's very obvious how much creativity you have. You can choose between different languages, different approaches. Like you just make everything through functions, you make classes, you divide everything into scripts, right? And at first, that might not seem like it carries over to operations, but it really does, just at a different scale. And making the decisions between what approach to use might be harder to back out of because you're working at uh, an architectural infrastructure level versus just the application level. So there's a lot more integration, and as you scale, the heavier everything's going to be, and the longer it's going to take to make massive changes, right? So that's all things to think about. Okay, so back to this, right? We were going over the script. We talked a bit about how Terraform's not perfect. So Chad wrote this Python script to basically run a sub-process called check output. Okay. AWS is being defined. Looks like it's just running AWS region. And it's waiting for a status for these things. Very interesting. I didn't actually take the time to read through this yesterday, so like I'm finding it really interesting how he did this. Um, cool. He's setting some values like float, or I'm thinking these are probably default values if they don't come back. Max attempts, and he's just iterating through these attempts, trying to retrieve these values. It then lists some intents. It updates the enable fulfillment intent. And yeah, well, I guess like it says, it's really just handling a lot of CLI for you. Creates and updates aliases, and then let's solve this. Enable fulfillment hook on the three intents. Okay, yeah, right. like the notes set at the very top. And then at the end, it's going to output some values. Let's ignore these. I don't think I was able to get this to work. So I'm gonna comment that out. And I'm just gonna ignore that. We're gonna pay attention to this. Basically, we're gonna want to take the alias ID that it gives us, and we want to make sure that we get that into a configuration because there's also a chat app inside of the resources directory. And this is our React app, a very simple React app. And we shouldn't have to touch anything here except for this configuration file. We will need to update this Cognito identity pool, the spot ID, and the spot alias ID. And that's about it. That and any troubleshooting that we run into. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a new project. And as usual, if my text is too small, let me know. Let's see, what is it? 13th. Hold on, actually, let me think. Should I make an entirely new project? We should be starting off from day 3. So, right. I think I'm going to want to copy over all of these resources first, right? Like that's going to be my first thing. So, these directories. No, not week 8. We want week 9. We want day 4 a.m. and we want this resource directory. I want to copy everything from this directory. So it's a very long directory, which is why I'm just going to copy paste this entire thing. And I'm going to copy it over into my new directory. So 12, 13, 25, CP this, and everything in this to this current directory. Okay, right. What was it? Is it dash P or dash R? Maybe it's dash R for recursive. Yeah, that makes sense. So dash R will allow me to grab subdirectories, which is exactly what it was complaining about up here. And now if I do an outlaws, I see all the subdirectories. We've got our chat app, we've got our scripts, and we've got our Terraform. Okay, this extension is annoying me. Okay, all right, cool. Oh, yeah. And here are my Terraform files. All right, so now that I've got my resources copied over, I'm going to, let's see, what am I going to do? Am I going to start with the Terraform? Yeah. I'm going to go to the Terraform directory instead of just LSing it. And I'm going to deal with Terraform in it because we always have to run init to generate the state locally. Okay, been initialized, everything looks like it's good to go. Let's see what else we have to do. Why is this? All right, I deleted those things. That should be fine. Closing this, closing that. Okay, here we go. That's the wrong one. Right. So our prereqs, we should have the service bot directory or a new directory like we just copied right now. And the goal is to have these intents deployed along with the LexBot. I guess we'll have two terminals open. Okay, so I do. And I'm gonna slightly deviate, I think, from these commands because I didn't do day three, but I did copy over the day three resources. I'm just gonna do everything in the same uh, terminal space, or at least the same subdirectory. And let's see. What we're going to do is we're going to extend our day three project with the chat interface and Cognito that we talked about. So let's start by creating those things. Code chat.interface.tf and cognito.tf. I'm also going to ignore this day four outputs. I'm just going to toss everything in my existing outputs file. So I've got these. Save, just so they exist. Minus wall mark these as complete. Whoops, gotta remember how to. Tags. A lot of these are actually from day three. Yeah, these are all from day three. So let's go ahead and mark all these done. And it looks like I forgot to add the rest of the do's. So we'll be flying blind. We are, yes, creating our chat interface. Let's start with that. So we are gonna start by, oh shoot. What is going on here? Sorry, give me one sec. I don't know why I'm seeing the old version of this. Okay, cool. I must have had the old version open from yesterday. All right, so we are starting with the chat interface. And we are going to start with creating this data line, which you've seen before, which essentially just gives us our account ID. So let's start with that. And then we're going to set some variables. Oh, that's why, right. That's why I hate using the preview. So I'm going to use Markdown Editor instead, even though I hate this font. Let's see. Okay, that's fine. Where am I? Right. Okay, so we copied the locals. Actually, this isn't great either. I think this extension kind of sucks also. Okay, cool. Let me copy it, and we're essentially setting a bucket name dynamically using the bot name, the environment, our account ID. And let's see. Now we need to create the bucket itself. So let's copy paste that and let's escape out of that. So this S3 bucket is going to make a chat interface, or we're going to label it chat interface. And it's going to use this chat bucket name. We are going to set force destroy. So at the end, we could run Terraform destroy. And we are going to use these tags. Okay. Now, let's add configuration. And in this configuration, we're again calling that same local variable. Oh no, it didn't copy the I think did it. And this extension's not that great either. Cool. Right. So we are setting configuration. We are targeting the bucket resource that we made earlier using the label that we gave it, and we're using the ID from that resource. And we are going to be using this index.html, which is going to be built from the React app as our document. Removing the S3 access block. Yes, there's another step we'll have to do just because generally an S3 bucket is used for storing files, so you don't really want to give public access to it. But because we could also use S3 buckets to serve static content, in this case, we will want to allow public access. So we're going to just change some default settings like blocking, uh, policy for blocking, configuration for blocking, and we are then going to also enable read access. So that's what all this is. Man, this thing is the worst. Okay. Okay, cool. So we've got the policy. This should allow for read access. And right, one thing to point out here is using the wildcard to essentially allow anyone to read from this S3 bucket. So that's our chat interface, fairly simple. Next, we're gonna work on making the Cognito Terraform file. So React runs in the browser, and in order to interact with Lex, it needs to have AWS credentials. And instead of hard coding our credentials into the app or importing it from, I don't know, environment variables while we're running the build, we are going to use Cognito. Because generally, when you can, it's good to use existing processes over MacGyvering a solution, even though that's what we're doing today with this Python setup script. Okay, so we are going to call the Cognito pool. I'm going to label this Lex Chat. So this pool is going to have a name. It's going to be the bot name with the environment. Going to have this property set to true. And we're just going to continue to use these same local tags, which I think if we go to, was it in here? Never mind. Well, it's the same as the ones set above or set in the other. It's somewhere in one of these Terraform files. And then we are going to create the IAM role that unauthenticated users are going to assume. So let's copy this over as well. If that copy button never shows up. Okay. So again, we are just establishing a role that's going to be used by the React app, or more, another way of saying it is a user running the React app in their browser. And then we just have to attach that policy. So let's add that. Let's save. We have to connect the pool to the role as well. That copied. Okay, so right? When an unauthenticated user requests credentials from this pool, it gives them permissions using this role. Cool. That's it for our Cognito and chat interface files. And if you had made a new outputs TF file, day4/outputs TF file, that's fine. Um, like I think I mentioned last week, why is this not transparent? It's supposed to be transparent. Like I mentioned last week or the week before, I can't remember now. Um, this naming convention is really just like best practices. You could toss all of your variables, all of your outputs into any of these Terraform files. Everything inside of this same directory is going to be run by the Terraform commands. So I'm going to use the same outputs file. And oops, I forgot to delete these from the outputs file, but you're supposed to copy them over anyway. So there they are. We have the chat bucket name, the chat URL. This URL is what we're going to use to access the React app hosted in the S3 bucket. So it's going to have the bucket configuration, the interface, and the website endpoints. And then again, we want to output the identity pool ID and the ARN for the Lambda. This is what we're going to be using in the configuration for the React app. And I think that configuration is really just going to be used by the setup script that Chad created. Or no, the setup script does the CLI. We'll look at the React app in a sec. I'm not remembering how the configuration is run, but it is used during build. These values are used during build. So if we run into issues and we have to troubleshoot, we'll be rebuilding. Okay, so that's everything we need. What is this? I guess if you wanted to copy the files, um, that's what these are. I need to find a way better Markdown reader extension. Okay, yeah. So, right, if you want the full files for reference, they are available in an expandable column. And now that I'm thinking about it, I could be using a browser, can I? And what is our curriculum URL? This might be, I should have been doing this from the start. And of course, it's not loading. It works in Cursor. Cursor has its own built-in browser, or it might just be using the simple browser. I don't remember, but I'll troubleshoot this later. I just really want to see all of this stuff in in a clean way, and B, in a way that doesn't get interrupted like every time I click on it, which is pretty annoying. Okay, so that's that. These expanded sections aren't being rendered properly in this extension, but it is what it is. All right, so we've saved our files. Now we could run our Terraform and it's cool. Our project has been initialized. We could now do some formatting. And there's nothing to format. My files are all pretty. Now we could run Terraform apply, or we could plan first. just to see what's up. Cool. 25 resources to add and 0 to change, 0 to destroy. So let's go ahead, run Terraform apply. I'm gonna use auto approve because I know that all of this is good to go because it just ran plan. And then we're going to be saving some outputs. Cool. There's my service bot. Shoot, actually, I don't think I saw that. Did we? Where is that? I wanted to mention this. Shoot. Forgot to mention this. Right. So Terraform state, we are using Terraform variables. Shoot, not Terraform state, TFVars. I mean, we are using Terraform variables. So you could set those variables straight inside the variables file, or you could, better practice, use a TFVars file. The difference being is you could pass in that TFVars file during whatever pipeline you set up to automate this provisioning process. And that way you don't have to edit the code and push, change, release, etc. You want to change you want to change your service bot name. So hopefully you haven't run Terraform apply yet. Go to your Terraform.tfvars and change your bot name. Okay, so I ran apply. It looks like everything is good to go. 25 resources were created, and these are my outputs. I want to save these outputs. So let's see, what can I do? I could do a few things. I can, I don't know if I want to do this, but I'm going to try anyway. I can take all of this. I wonder if like the multi-line thing is going to mess it up. I'm going to try anyway. Like I said, shoot. I'm going to clear that out actually. I'm going to do, if I wanted to do this, I think I have to use single quotes because all of this is using double quotes. So single quote, close, double, another single quote. And I'm going to use redirect to put this into an outputs file. And voila, my outputs file. So we need particularly this spot ID, and everything else is just gravy, just confirming that everything is good to go. Uh, let's keep that closed. Right, there was all these as well. Let's see. Okay, just trying to make sure there's anything in here. Okay, chat URL is there, bucket name is there. Yeah, I think this should have everything that we need. And all of this is coming from the script that Chad created. If we go back to scripts, what was it? Lex CLI setup.py. We see those print statements all at the very end. Okay. Now that we have these values, we can go ahead and set up our React app. Okay, so I think there's one more thing that we're missing apparently, and that's, what is this? The Lambda ARN, even though I thought we grabbed that. Well, these are here because I think we want to actually export these values into environment variables so that when we run the build command or the React app, well, that's not right either. I think all of these are just going to the config file, but let's do what it says. You have all of these options. Chad uses fish. I don't use fish. I use Zeesh, but I couldn't get this to work either. This is the command that he provided, but it was giving me some kind of format error.
I got it to work.
Hmm.
If on order status, see
Hmm.
how both of the double quotes are escaped? If you just get rid of those backslashes on both sides, yeah, where your mouse is, it worked for me.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yes, so that's exactly one way to do it then. Like Nick pointed out, just unescape these double quotes and you should be good to go. But I'm also going to walk through this other way, which I guess is going to not be too long. But if you wanted the output to come from your outputs Terraform file, whoops, I'm gonna have to copy it from here because this extension is the worst. Out order status lambda arn, order status lambda arn. What's this whole thing actually? Okay, so that is that. Oh, I did add, and I forgot to delete it. Right. So it's actually already in. That's why it was in the outputs. That makes sense now. Okay. So the other way is to add it to your outputs, which I did for you. And you can just grab it from the outputs then, or you could do it the way that Nick pointed out, which is to unescape the double quotes in order status. Well, now we have all of the values that we need, so we can go ahead and export these to our environment. I'm thinking, I don't even think this is necessary. I don't think this step is necessary, but it doesn't hurt. I mean, once you close your browser, it's going to be, these going to disappear anyway, or terminal, not browser. And then we should be good to, oh, you do need it, I guess. You need it so that you could pass these into the setup command. Okay, right. So that setup is different from, right, because the config is for the React app and the setup is for running those CLI commands. So we do need this. We do need this. So I ran it. I'm good to go. I am going to go into, I guess it wants me to go into the root directory. So I'm going to go up one directory out of the Terraform directory, and I am going to go ahead and run this. Whoops. And I am passing in the bot ID and the Lambda arn that we have exported into our terminal environment. Hit enter, and it does all this magic for us. It's going to be updating our intent. It's going to be building that bot locale. And while it's building, I'm going to grab some water real quick. And it doesn't take too long. It should be just about done. It's going to output some values. And now, right, okay, so I think I said earlier about these outputs coming from the Python script, but I was looking at the very end of the Python script. This is actually that last Python block, not the one before. It's giving me these values. And again, we could skip this. I was trying to find a way to build the React app without having to manually configure the config file. But it wasn't liking the way that Vite imports variables. I'm not even sure if Chad used Vite for setting up his React app. So it was just a quick thing I wanted to try it and didn't work out. So we could ignore these. I deleted them, but apparently I put them back in. And this is what we want. These three values here. Okay. So it's different from the outputs that we had before. And that is because we ran some CLI commands, not us directly, but the Python script that we ran. And this is what we're going to want to use for the config. So if we go up, oh no, not up. If we go into the chat app directory, I'm not going to go into that directory. I'm just going to open the file that I need. I know where it is. I'm going to go to chat app dash source dash config.js. Hold on, let me see something. Sorry. Is it no, it's not it. Is it trying to remember the shortcut for making this transparent? That's annoying me. All right, our config file. We have our Cognito identity pool, got our outputs. We just have to do some simple copy paste. So our alias ID goes into alias ID. Our bot ID goes into bot ID. And then we need the Cognito pool ID, which is up here. So let's replace all that. And now we should be good to go. That should be it. Let's see. Does it matter where we run the build from? I think we need to go into the right. We do need to go into the chat app. So I was stubborn about that. Should have just went in there in the first place, but here I am now. And from here, I'm going to run npm install. Don't mind the vulnerabilities. Well, normally you would for best practice, but it's not like we're releasing anything into production. So we're going to skip the fixing the npm audits, and we are just going to go ahead and make sure this runs. Well, we're gonna trust in its ability to run. I guess. Yeah, I don't know what Chad used to set up his React app, but if we have faith in this application's ability to run, and we just go ahead and run the build, we'll find out soon enough whether it works or not. Okay, so it's just talking about how you could print these out again if you didn't save your outputs from earlier, but I did save, so I'm good to go. And then I'm going to run build. Cool. Easy peasy. It was pretty fast. Now we want to run some commands, S3 commands to deploy the build files, the files that were just built. If I do an ls, whoops, not there, but in here, we'll see that there was a build directory now. This is where the npm run build compiled all of the files. This is what we'll be pushing to the S3 bucket. So if we do alias S3, sync the build, and we grab this path, notice that in the path that we're passing, we're going up one directory, and then we're grabbing the output of the bucket name. We have to go up one directory right now because we're inside of chat app. The dash dash delete, I believe, is delete anything in the bucket. So if you had to rebuild, you wouldn't have to manually do the delete first. You might still have to delete the local build files just so you don't have any stale files, but we'll see if we have to run into that at all. And I think I did include that in troubleshooting section. So, okay, cool. This finished. Now I can grab the URL. Terraform output raw chat underscore URL. Oh no. So why did it not work? Got so close to the end with nothing going wrong, but here we are. No outputs found. Let's see. What am I missing? Did I miss anything? None of these returned any errors. What are you guys getting?
I'm not there
Same thing.
yet.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm not there yet. I'm like a step or two behind.
Okay. Let's
What?
see.
Yeah, what's your current working directory?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Good call. I am not in the right directory. I'm not in Terraform. Okay, so yesterday when I was doing this, I didn't have a Terraform directory. I just dumped everything into the root. Okay, so let me go into my Terraform file. And now if I do that Terraform output command, boom, got my URL. Okay, gonna command click, gonna hit open, and something like that. Oh, it's got to be because of that send symbol at the end. But here we are. This is our Lexbot. Let's open up our dev console just because we might be anticipating some errors. Let's see. Let's see if it works. Hello. Where is my order? Whoops. How did that happen? Where is my order? And because we specified an intent for checking on order, it's actually able to think and respond. But if we respond with any nonsense that we haven't accounted for, it's going to get confused and not know how to respond. But it works, at least the parts that we have intentionally programmed and written to work. So that is our Flexbot. This is using, again, a React app, and it's using Cognito to give me, the user, access to the Lex bot through the React app running in my browser. Okay. I'm gonna stop there. Is anyone running into any issues? Because if we are, we could troubleshoot.
Not yet. I'm still working through it.
Okay, cool.
Damn, I've just been watching, so I need to tackle it. And
Okay, cool. That's fine. Well, we're about at the hour mark. We have a few choices now. We could either break now and like just go into breakout rooms and work from here. Um, I'm hesitant to say this, to suggest this, but we could also try to run through the steps for this afternoon real quick instead of doing it later in the afternoon. If you all have any
I mean, I
preference.
think I would prefer that since I can't be here this afternoon, so that way I could do it on my own.
Okay, cool. Yeah, great, because it shouldn't be too long either. I did try to intentionally shorten it down so we could talk about the assessments. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and add a few more steps. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, I'm sharing. Now, let's go to, oh, that's my lab. I don't want to modify that. I want to go into day 3, sorry, day 4 p.m. Okay, so this is just going over adding some complexity. So accounting for a dialogue that goes on longer than a single question. And we'll really just be adjusting some of our lambdas and then testing. So here it looks like we're adding to our functions, retrieving an order number so that we could actually maybe return that order number if it exists. And we want to ensure that some attributes persist. Okay. I don't even know if we get to this part of where that was removed. So let's see what's in the lab. What's actually in the lab? Okay, so prereqs is basically everything that we've done up till now. We'll be adding some validation to the order status. And that's really just adding to the intents lambda, which should be really straightforward, right? We'll be updating the JavaScript for it as well. Okay. And basically, I don't know how much of this is already done. So let's take a look at that real quick. Want to do a quick overview before we step through. So Lambda, where is it? Lambda on templates. Yep. Order status, .js. Let's compare. All right. So we still have our handler. This is some of the new code that we're adding. Now, this doesn't look right to me. Shoot. Oh, no, this might be right. Okay. Well, just making sure that this matches session state. Okay, cool. All right, so okay, cool. So that does look right. Got a little worried there for a sec. Um, let message, all of that exists. Intent name. Okay, so this is the new stuff up here. We check if the request is a validation request. And we validate the order number, make sure that it's alphanumeric, minimum 5 characters. And if everything is good, then we will return that session state. I'm wondering if we might run into issues because of this hook, but we'll see. We'll add that. We'll run Terraform apply because we're updating the Lambda and the Lambda code. We'll then be Why does it want us to do the Terraform apply up there, not down here? We'll probably ignore that first Terraform apply. I don't know why this is here if we have a Terraform apply later on. Um, then we'll be adding some confirmation to the return request. So updating the return request lambda. And then we'll add some fallback intent. So really, we're just updating these three lambdas. So let's jump to it. Let's start with order status. All right, so inside of flex intents.tf, let's go look for, keep forgetting it does that. I can't double click, so I'll try to highlight. So for that, it's down here. And shoot, I forgot to delete this too. I added this and then I uploaded it to the repo without deleting it first. But anyway, I copy pasted it for you. Looks like that matches, right? So that I'm just gonna save anyway. And what else? Now this is where we update our lambda. And this was not done for you. So let's, in between this console log and the intent variable, start to add these pieces. So again, we talked about there being this conditional check. And then we want to store that order number so we can use it again later on. And we want to validate that order because if it's not a proper order number, then we don't want to send that back to the user. Or I should say, if they don't give us an order number, we can't process it and send them back a response. Let's see. I think I'm missing. Yeah, I should have just copied all of this. And Z. Okay. So if it's valid, then we will continue. And then the rest should be good to go. So I'm going to save. I'm going to skip this. And now let's go to our intents. Okay, this should all be customer service. Cool. Dynamic sample utterance. Okay, yeah, here we go. All right, so in this resource that we've added, we're going to add some more things. We are going to add confirmation for the return request. So grab this confirmation setting, dynamic confirmation setting, and we're doing this so that it only applies to this one intent and not all of these intents because, again, we used count and for to create these different intents, right? So let's grab that. Let's make some space for it. Let's toss it in there. So we have that for each again. And okay. So for each, we're going to grab the key and we're going to check to see if it matches return request. If the intent is not return request, then we're not going to return anything. But if we do return a one, then we're going to continue and specify this prompt message to pass back. Okay. So this block only creates a confirmation setting. All your existing intents stay in the for each. This way we don't have to modify any of that Terraform code. Because another way of doing this would be to just take that intent out of the for each and then create it separately, but this should be a much more elegant solution. Okay, so now we want to update that lambda. So let's go over to return request. And here, after this line and before just like before, let's make some space and let's add some of this new code. I'm going to check if the user denied the confirmation. And if they did, or sorry, if they didn't, then we're going to continue with the request. Okay. I'm looking at this and okay, I see what happened. This formatting's a little bad. This intent does need to be before all of this, so I see. I should not have added space there. I should have done something like this. This shouldn't be under new, basically. Like I should have moved that up, but it's just syntax. So let me paste this in there. Basically my point is just don't copy this. Don't duplicate it. It should already be in your Lambda. Because if you duplicate it, it's going to throw an error because you're going to have two constants named intent and JavaScript's going to yell at you. So don't do that. Just copy this part here and then let's save. And now, again, we're going to ignore the Terraform apply and we'll just do one apply at the very end. Now let's update our last step. So let's go back to Lex intents. We're going to go add a fallback. Sure, okay, cool. And inside of our order status, so back in this guy, let's see. Back to what we added in step 1. If the source is dialog code hook, then we define these slots and session attributes. That should be the same. What is it telling me to do? I'm trying to like see where it's actually differing from what we already have. That's the order, is the conditional check. Is this. Then we return. I don't see what it's trying to get me to change. Oh, here it is. Maybe if I read the comments. All right. So after all this, let's make some space. And we are going to add another condition. Basically, if the intent now is fallback intent, which is what we added up here to Lex intents, then it's going to return something like, I didn't understand whatever you were trying to tell me. Can you try again? And hopefully all of this works. And if not, then we could dive into troubleshooting mode. Okay, the rest should be the same. Looks like it's creating that message variable, which it then populates based on the intent, and then it returns a response. Now we could save, and we can plan and terraform pray. Okay, cool. Let's good to go. And cool. Okay. Do we need, oh no. And the plan didn't catch that. Shame on this plan. Let's see. Let's go back to our terraform. Fallback intent.
So when it's like the fallback intent is always automatic on the console. In Terraform, do we have to program it in specifically or
I think we're doing it because we want to customize
the
the,
fallback? Or
yeah, yeah.
okay.
So let me think. Uh, because we could go to the console and edit through there, but we
But do we
want to,
have to go anyway for the because we're using lambdas? Are we gonna or because we have to do the check mark, right? There's the use lambda hook in the console.
I think that's what Chad's Python script is for. He's basically having us do all of that through the CLI, but the script is automating that for us.
Oh, okay. Enable full code hook for validation. Okay.
Right. So I'm wondering if we have to rerun Chad's script or if that's not going to matter because his script doesn't include anything about the fallback intent. And I think that's kind of what the script was doing, right? It was kind of changing some of these values. Let me check real quick. Let's go through this script again and see if we can understand it well enough to make some changes. All right, so if you're caught up to where I am right now, feel free to help look through Chad's code. Okay, let me think. Okay, so none of this is gonna matter, I don't think. This is just running some console commands like checking the region. It's retrieving these values. I don't think there's anything yet that can be impacted. Okay, so here we're retrieving all the various intents, ID. I'm gonna see what happens if I rerun this script. So let me go with one directory. If I do that, I'm just gonna double check earlier. Where we run chat script. Where was that? Okay. All right, so we do this from resource directory. So that should be this. Okay, right. So it's not going to be updating that intent because it's not in the for loop. So I wonder another way of doing this. I wonder if another way of doing this would be to, instead of adding this as a separate resource, expanding the for loop. Okay. So
The other intents.
yes, the intents. So let's think. Let me think. All right, let's try it super quick. It might fail. And if it fails, then we will open up breakout room. Um, we'll work on the challenges. And then in the main room, if anyone wants to continue to mess around with this and see if we get it to, if we could refactor it in a way to get it to work, that's that'll be in the main room. So uh, we were going to look at where's all that? Not familiar enough with all of this. Only ran through it a few times. Where did I see that for loop? Where was the for loop? It's in here somewhere. And the count was set inside of intents, I think, right?
Should
No?
be. At least that's where it used to be up at the top. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, these are the intent configs, order status, return request. This formatting is weird.
I mean, it shows you each of the intents in red, right?
Right, but I would think that order status is supposed to be red.
Oh, yeah.
That's weird. But
Maybe.
this is just the third party extension, so I got tired of looking at Terraform files in all white. I just installed this yesterday.
Looks like they might. Is it missing a bracket?
I hope not, because like that. Well, maybe. Let's see.
Yellow. So like look for the end yellow one and maybe it needs one more yellow to
Yeah, let's
that
see.
you're right, that should be order status should be red if it follows the pattern.
Mhm.
Like at the bottom, is there another bracket?
At the bo very bottom.
Like, well, so there's that one that matches.
Hmm. Yeah, because if I add a bracket here, then that looks to be. Oops. I think that just.
I was thinking at the end it was missing a bracket, like at the end of the intent configs. Like
And
you're not like there's no closing bracket for intent configs.
oh, right, like that's what I'm trying to add. I thought this.
But that should be below because right now I think you're like adding a bracket into like
Oh, you're
statuses.
right.
You
Let's
go
see.
down to the end after all of the intents.
All of the intents are just. I see what you're saying. But that so that would be
There's close there. Yeah.
it should be this, shouldn't it?
Should.
It's highlighting it up here for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Weird.
know. I don't know why it's like this. Okay. I think that is right. There are at least a selection is matching. It's lining up. Let me do that. So I wonder if I did something like this. Yeah, I think it's just this extension. It's getting a little thrown off. But basically, so what do we think? Do we think if we added another intent, we should be able to get this to work?
Yeah, like adding the fallback in. So just copying everything after fallback.
Yeah, let's see. We'll have to change a few other things as well, but let's wing it from here. Uh, let's call this, I don't know, order fallback or status fallback. And for the utterances, one makes sense. Let's say I don't think this is right. I don't think we would be specifying the utterances like this because this shouldn't be following a user response. It should be a fallback.
Yeah, it should be anything else, like right, like X, anything that doesn't match the other ones, right?
Right, exactly. So let's put a pin on this. That's and let's continue to look through, think through all of this. Wonder if okay, here's oh, this for the CloudWatch logs. I'm looking for let's see. Let's see if the documentation can help us. Lex V2. And we are looking for bot locale. No, sorry, model intents, which makes a lot more sense. It's a resource for managing AWS V2. It's an intents example. No examples of setting a fallback through here. Okay. And so let's look to see if there's okay. Not getting anything useful out of this. Right. So before I burn any more time or too much more time, let's check one more thing that I'm trying to like manually uh, experiment with all of this. Let's see if any of these guys are helpful. So do chat inside of our I select this and here's day two. Here's okay, here's stats. We want to ask. We want to ask okay. And I honestly don't think it's gonna give me a great answer. I think when it comes to resources like um Lex V2, where there's not a lot of great examples out there, and examples that are out there are newer and not necessarily available to the LLM through its pre-trained data, we're not going to get great results. I think that's partly why there were so many issues with the V1 to V2 conversions from earlier this week as well. V1 was deprecated in September. The content was written before that, so we had to change it, and we tried to rely on uh, Claude to do that, and Claude said, "Sure, I know what V2 is," and apparently it didn't. So, can I specify Lex fallback intents for Lex V2 using Terraform? Okay, we're using Claude, and we're using Claude with Copilot. See what it tells us. Okay, that's great. I don't know if I trust it yet. Let's see. Can we are using count and for each to create our multiple intents. Can we follow the same pattern to add a fallback intent? There it is. Can't use for each because it requires parent intent signature, which is incompatible with the standard intent configuration pattern.
Oh, so you can't use that attribute for all of them. So you can't use it in a follow fallback or in a loop.
Yes, that's as it seems. So, right, you don't have utterances or slots, which is where which is where our intuition earlier was telling us this doesn't seem right. So the best approach is to keep it as a separate resource. So let's go ahead and uncomment that and let's see if it works.
That was
What-
the, had you changed it from what it originally was?
I don't
Because it
think so, right? Did I? I don't think
wasn't
I
an
did.
issue though.
Let's see. Let's undo all of this stuff just because, yeah, I don't want to apply that. Why is it doing that? Undo, undo,
Thing.
undo. Doesn't, I don't use Copilot enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, seed. Did we change anything? I don't think we did, right? Oh, but we did try to run this and it failed, right?
Yes, that's my point of like what does it then it says to uncomment it, but does it suggest a correction?
Right. Okay. So let's see if that's still inside of our terminal. No, I guess I didn't use this one. Wherever I saw that, there we go. Wherever I saw this, let's see. Let's ask Claude about it. So I tried to run that commented out code and I got this running Terraform apply. So it essentially goes back to what you were asking earlier, Kathleen, about the fallback intent already being set.
Uh-huh. Oh, so
So,
it is. So it's already, yeah, so it's already set, so you don't need to have another one? Or you
well,
okay.
if
You
we want to configure it, we'll have to import it first.
as data or
It's suggesting to use import.
okay.
I'm we may be able to use data. It really boils down to whether that's supported by the provider. Let's try what it's suggesting first, though. Let's just do a quick scan of the variables. All that looks right, but it's not. Okay, let's see. I'm not in my Terraform directory again. Okay, cool. Ooh, can't parse this. Use intent ID, bot ID, bot version, locale ID. Okay. I'm gonna just ask it to update this for me. Okay, so let's wait, why is it doing that? No, I don't want that. Just give me the what does it want to do? It wants to go into this directory. It wants the output for me. Okay, okay, buddy, sure. I guess it could do it for me as well. Oh, so it's failing because we need the actual intent ID.
And the import doesn't provide that, or do we need to add that in the output first? Or
I
is
think it
there,
just gets. Oh no, go on.
I was just gonna say, is there so since it's a one command Terraform import, is there like a output tag?
In the command that it gave us,
Yeah.
I'll have to look
Mm.
back at it. I'm not sure, but it's not done like troubleshooting itself. Okay, so it looks like it got the import done eventually. And let's step you through that real quick then and see what happened. So it noticed that the import format needs colons, not commas. It ran a Terraform output commands just to verify the values. Then it ran the import with the correct format, so colons instead of commas. I ran into one more error where intent ID failed, and that was because it's the intent ID required, not the name. So at this point, it changed the command again. It used list intents to grab the intent ID, and it updated its command, at least. Let's see, right there we go. Instead of the name, fallback intent, it used the ID fallback int. So that's what it did. Now
I
it's
do
going to,
like I do like that it kind of walks you through because that's kind of an interest. It almost walks you through the potential workflow of if you don't know how to do something like this. So
right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It gets it right sometimes, and it's really helpful. And other times it's going to take you down a rabbit hole.
yeah, been there.
Yep. Same here. Right. So it's gonna try to run apply for us. Looks like it's actually working, which is great. And damn, we ran into one more error. This is where Chat script was doing some of the work for us. So let's see if Claude can figure all of this out on its own. So the error shows that the bot version for intents must be draft, not a version number. Needs to use draft like our other intents. And it's going to try to fix it because we would have to modify chat script and understand it in order to modify it. But this is working well enough. It's always exciting to see. Let's see. So summary of what we learned. We can't use for each for fallback intents because they require this parent intent signature and they don't use utterances or slots. And because Flex v2 automatically creates a built-in fallback intent, we have to import that existing one. And it requires these values. So now the fallback intent is managed within our Terraform state. So where are we at now? We've applied this. Let's go back to the lab. Oh man, now I'm getting way too many tabs, all this clutter. Okay, this is the right one. We want this one. Okay, so I think that's it. We're caught up with the end of this, which means if we, I'm trying to think, would we need to rebuild and redeploy? Or could we just refresh and say something like this? Doesn't look like it's saying anything new. So we're not getting the fallback yet, which means I don't see why we would have to rebuild because the React app is just a layer that calls the Lex resource. If Lex is updated, if this bot is updated to use this intent, we shouldn't need to build and redeploy. So it's confirming these, but it's not confirming anything about the fallback. Okay. Well, one thing we can do at this point is to double check in the ALVOS console what has changed and what hasn't. So let's go look at our Lux spot and let's do a bit of exploration. Or Lex, not Lex spot. And of course, I don't know why it keeps defaulting me to this. All right, what did we name our bot? There we go. Let's see this guy. Let's see where we can look at its intents. Let's go to edits. I don't want to see, I want to edit that. Where do I find the intents?
Julius, if you look at on the left hand under all languages, English, and then
Ah, thanks. Cool. So it's got all these. It's got the fallback intent that was created. By default, we imported this and we tried to change it, but we didn't see any change. So it doesn't look like any changes were made. So why is that? Okay, so we had the resource, we imported it into our state, gave it a description. Is it because we didn't actually change anything? Are we missing something? I think we might be missing something.
What are you
Okay.
trying to change?
So I noticed that there wasn't any change to the intent itself inside of
Mhm.
uh,
The command interface.
right. So I wonder if we're like missing a part where we were supposed to specify the messages that it falls back on. Because I don't think we did that.
Like what it outputs when it's does a fallback.
Right, exactly. Oh, it's here. Here it is in one of, did we update our lambdas? We did, right? We should have updated our lambdas.
Then you need to click the Lambda hook thing, right, for the fallback to.
Okay.
Because if you're updating it with a Lambda, then like when you were in the command console, that button wasn't checked to allow it to work with a Lambda, right?
Right. Okay. And that was where we changed the intent. Okay, so let's try that.
But I don't know if the script was supposed to automatically do that.
Chat script or
I think you had mentioned, because otherwise we need to click that button for all of them, right?
yeah, we would have had to update chat script to also do it for the fallback intent and not just the original three.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we do that hook? Because I do.
Scroll to the very bottom.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, cool.
And then I think you also have to do the settings, right, Nick? I don't know if you have to do that. So like if you do the test, if you go scroll all the way up
Hmm.
and then yeah, do the test, hit test, and then the little settings button at the top right.
Hmm.
And then there you have to do the source and then find your Lambda. You can
What do we call it?
like whatever the name of the Lambda that owns that or like manages that.
I forget what we called it. Let's see, inside of our Lambda file, have fulfillment. We had Lex invoke. I wonder if it's Lex invoke. It might be Lex invoke, right? So let's see. Lex, well, it's not coming up. Maybe that's not, no, that's a label, right? That's not the name, that's the label.
Yeah, that's the label. So it needs to be whatever the name of the Lambda is, I think.
Right. Okay. So it's the name is the bot name. Well,
Yeah.
for the um
So if you search for your bot name, it should at least filter it down to all the Lambdas that you're currently using.
oh cool, there it is. And we just want that latest version. Okay. Let's hit save. Oh, do we have to change?
I think you have to do the other one too. So like you have to do both windows, I think. Or no, so late the other one is just latest. That was the only other thing. You just save and save intent.
Okay, we don't need to update the S3 bucket.
We didn't in the lab.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's for audio logs. Okay, cool. So then
I don't know if
save.
you hit save, yeah. Within that window and then also save intent, yeah. So in theory it should work.
All right, cool. So let's see any change, but let's try it. Oops, let's refresh. Rats. Okay. Well, we tried. We tried and
All right.
we got far, but not far enough. Okay, cool. Now it has been a while. I know like there were earlier this week there were I think some feedback about lab duration and fatigue. So well, we are gonna cut the recording. We're gonna take a break. We're going to open up breakout rooms. And again, this afternoon, we won't have anything else to share. I can continue to mess around with this in the main room. But when we get back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through the assessment, its requirements, and then I'm going to show you all the rubric and you can get started on that. Sound good?
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.